Private not-for-profit organization focuses primarily with young people that are in the child welfare system or juvenile justice system or in danger of going into the child welfare or juvenile justice system. We really believe that it's best for children to stay with their families if at all possible, although we do have residential programs, residential treatment programs, we have therapeutic foster care programs, we have group homes, we provide transitional living as well as intensive in-home services. We also in Tennessee, have an adoption program and a statewide crisis program. We operate in 10 states and the District of Columbia. We have 64 locations, about 2,300 staff, serve about 17,000 young people a day. Our real focus is help work with states and to help transform their child welfare system and where we can focus more on keeping children and families together. And if children do have to be removed from their family, to help try to return those young people home as quickly as possible. Well, most governments are strapped by a few things. One is obviously economic challenges, these days and times. Overwhelming number of young people in the child welfare and juvenile justice systems that often stay there a very long time. And also, they don't get very good outcomes. They know that their recidivism rates are terrible, that the kids often come back into care. And there's often crisis in the child welfare system in our own communities. So what we do is we try to work with the lead officials in the state and try to help identify what their key problems and challenges are, and see really if our programs and services can match some of their challenges. And hopefully we all have the same goals of helping children and families live successfully in the community in a more natural environment versus an institutional type environment. But they do have to be an institutional type care or foster care. It's a good setting. It's appropriate for that young person's needs, but there's also a strategy and a plan trying to return that young person home or find them a new home as quickly as possible. At 24, I hadn't been out in the world too much. I had great parents. I grew up, went to Catholic schools, elementary schools, high schools, had a younger brother, older brother, great family. I mean, it was a Cleaver family, so to speak. I mean, we, scouts and sports and very active. But I had the first program I went to work for when I was 18 at Tall Trees Youth Guidance School. I had a very, very good man that ran the program. His name was Bill Key, a very good leader. He was way ahead of his time in terms of thinking about how to help young people. Then I went to work at juvenile court for 5.5 years after that, from 19 to 24. Another very, very strong juvenile court judge there. So I had an opportunity to watch two men work that, there were things I didn't like as well, but there were a lot of things I liked. So I had really two people that I could model my early years after. But then after that, when I began reading in my late 20s, early 30s, I really was drawn to some people, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. I mean, you look at their stories, you read their stories, you read their past, you look at their years of commitment. It wasn't overnight. It was all based on sacrifice and vision and bringing people along the way. I love them. I mean, I love reading their stories. It's been quite some time. But then also, as I've worked in an organization, I've had some fantastic chairmen of boards and board members. A man named Jim Pickle, a man named Spence Wilson, my current chair of the board, Mike Bruns, that have been really strong men and strong leaders, and have really provided me a lot of support. I read a lot. Obviously I love Jim Collins, Ram Charan, Peter Drucker. I read, tons of books and try to find pieces from all those people or their data or their research or their experiences or their stories about other organizations. And I try to take that and bring it to Youth Villages. But I also really work hard at every one of our quarterly meetings. In the back of the room are all these books I've read over the years, and encourage our people to read and learn, new and different ways to do things better and more effectively and more efficiently. I think a lot of people come to work at Youth Villages, right out of undergraduate and graduate school. They think they know what they want to do. It's hard to really know what you want to do. And I think once they kind of get into our work and see that they can really make a difference, that, they're not just, somebody that's graduated from college, they're a person that can make a difference in the life of a young person, the life of a family. And I think when they get to, hopefully have a good experience with their team they work with their supervisor, the person that leads the organization, and hopefully, after, I usually say if you're not excited about this place in 7 or 8 months, it's probably not the best place for you. But that's our job. Our job is to get them excited about it and give them an opportunity to maybe have some challenges along the way, but also be able to pick themselves up and be successful. So, I mean, I think we probably hire the same kind of people everybody else hires. I wish we had a market on hiring the best people. We try to hire the best people, but I don't, people all start out a little rough around the edges. I think we get better over time. The awkward part about that is, we thought the silver bullet was residential treatment. I remember from 1980 to 1994, that's primarily what we did. We did start foster care a little bit in the early 90s, but that was what we did. We were selling that. We were raising money. We were building buildings. We convinced government officials and referral sources to send us their kids and work with families. And we basically, had to, that was a difficult time. I mean, it wasn't a difficult, it was an exciting time, but in my head the whole time I'm saying, at what point am I going to admit this publicly that I was wrong? Now, I'd been doing this 20 years since, in 1993, because I started in 73. Even when I was a probation officer at juvenile court, my focus was try to get kids in residential treatment programs. And that was my focus, to get those kids in those programs. So, it took some convincing inside my head and some sleepless nights and a lot of writing and a lot of reading. But when we decided to make the change, it came all out. We started over. We rewrote every job description, every policy and procedure, mission and values, met with every staff. We lost some staff during that period of time because their belief system was still, they were in the business of raising other people's children. So we lost some staff. That was tough, but we said, you can't stay. If your heart says one thing, just because we're seeing your head shake that way, if your heart's not shaking that way too, it doesn't work. And it didn't work for some of those people. That was a challenge. I think with scaling, you first have to have a strategy. You've got to make sure that you understand the conditions of the place where you're going to scale. We have a clear process. It's several pages of we're assessing the conditions in a new community. Does that community believe that children are raised best by their families? Is the government consistent with that belief? Are you going to be able to get referrals? What are the rules and regulations? Can you raise money in that community? Can you find high quality people to work in this environment? There's a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself before you consider a new community. But the most important question is, who's going to lead that new office? Who's going to lead that new state charge? And then do we have the resources to support that person, not just the financial resources? How long is it going to take us to open the office, get information technology, get the phone system in, provide the training for the new staff? There's a lot of pieces to that. Then build the marketing. That you have to have a strategy and a plan. And so we've had some missteps along the way, and we've learned from those, and we're trying to get better each time. But you have to have a strategy, a plan, and stick with it. And we do have challenges. Bring the group back together, solve a problem, and keep moving forward. But that's it. And then you have to monitor the outcome, to monitor your services along the way. And there's certain key indicators where the things are not going well. You're not getting paid. You're not getting referrals. You have a lot of staff turnover. A lot of disruptions in the program with the kids. There's a lot of indicators that say slow down. We've got some problems here. So we're constantly monitoring a number of components. Every day, some every week, and some every month along the way, to know if it's working or if it's not working. Yeah, so that's critical. And we also, like I said, we hire from within. All the people that begin new areas of the country, we won't go there unless we have a key person that really is prepared to lead that program. They have the necessary training for startups. A lot harder than just running a day-to-day program, and they're willing to make those level of sacrifices. Yeah, the goals have changed. Much more of a focus now is on business development, on developing leadership, because we're growing at a rate. We've been growing about 15 to 16, 17% a year. You're doubling every 4 to 5 years. You've got to have a leadership pipeline, a much greater focus on policy, national and local policy, branding, a much greater focus on branding, which we really never focused that much on. A real process to evaluate possible mergers and acquisitions as a key strategy, possibly. So yeah, the philosophy, the mission all stay consistent, but when it comes to the strategies to impact your organization, yeah, it's changed dramatically. I never dreamed we'd ever have a lobbyist or working on the Hill, or really focusing on trying to brand our organization and for people to know who we are. That was not our focus years ago. It was really focused on providing good services for kids. But we're finding to provide good services to kids, you have to have the resources, which often come from the government, but people have to know who you are. The biggest challenge is getting, I've had hundreds of meetings with government officials to get them to even be open to the idea of serving a young person in the community with their family versus versus put them in institutional care or residential foster care. I remember this was years ago meeting with a guy, and he was probably 10 or 15 years older than me, and we'd met 3 or 4 times in a course of about a month and a half. And I said, every week I want to be here to meet with you until we were able to get a contract. And I said, and we're relatively young. And I was sitting here with Lee Rohn, who's younger than I was, and we were there every week until he finally got the boot and they brought somebody else in. And that it takes a degree of persistence and patience, and it's got to be a loving degree of persistence and patience. It can't be going there hitting them over the head saying, "You got to do this." We've got to help. We want to help you do this together. But that is the most frustrating part. I mean, just to get people to change the way they think and even be open to it sometimes. And we're meeting with some states now that they have terrible financial problems, a terrible child welfare system, a lawsuit, but they're not even open to making this change. And it's so frustrating. You leave there and just want to, just hit your head against the wall. Yeah. The most important, there's one metric that has to be measured. It's what happens after a young person leaves your program. The key metric is 1 year. Now, we do track children not just 1 year, but we also track them at 2 years, but the data is almost the same at 1 year and 2 years. That metric is the key data. It says, how is that young person doing 1 year after they left? Because usually if you can get a family through a crisis, a difficult time, and you provide the necessary skills and support that they need to carry on with, if after 1 year that family's doing good, you got a pretty good chance. That's the key metric. We know that drives everything we do. Now there's hundreds of metrics that fold up to make the programs and the services sufficient enough for that metric is 80% plus. And we have a lot of indicators that we measure as we're rolling that up. And we know that there's certain indicators that can go wrong that are going to mess that up. And we have a pretty good idea what most of those are. Not all of them. We're trying to explore that now. But if there's something in the kind of the indicator process along the way that is messed up, turnover with staff, bad training program, bad clinical supervision, we know there's some things that you're not going to get that 83% success rate, or kids moving in and out of several different programs in the course of your program. We know we're not going to be able to achieve that goal. So that's the primary metric we look at. We would love to see Youth Villages be the organization that anytime a state has problems or the federal government is looking at policy issues or program service issues or outcome data and measurement processes, they would say give us a call and know that we're an organization that has data, that has proven outcomes, have proven programs. We're still learning, got a lot to learn, but we can help them. I mean, we want to be an organization that if a state is serious about transforming their system and improving their system, they'll give us a call. We want, and we're probably going to be in a lot of those states anyway, but we really want to go deep in probably a handful of states and provide a continuum of services, not just in-home services, because we think you can better impact probably 5 or 6 states versus going and have a small impact on 30 or 40 states. We're right now in the middle of our business planning, and hopefully we'll be able to share more specifically what that strategy will look like in a few months. But we do know that there's got to be changes on Capitol Hill for us to have a chance. If there are not significant changes on the Hill, and it's not Democrat or Republican changes, it's philosophical changes and taking resources from bad services and bad programs and put them into good services and good programs, that has to be done. There has to be a way to measure the outcome of every services the state provides, or it will be a disaster. Child welfare system in our own community. So what we do is we try to work with the lead officials in the state and try to help identify what their key problems and challenges are, and see really if our programs and services can match some of their challenges. And hopefully we all have the same goals of helping children and families live successfully in the community in a more natural environment versus an institutional type environment. But they do have to be an institutional type care or foster care. Well, most governments are strapped by a few things. One is obviously economic challenges, these day and times. Overwhelming number of young people in the child welfare and juvenile justice systems that often stay there a very long time. And also, they don't get very good outcomes. They know that their recidivism rates are terrible. That the kids often come back into care. And there's often crisis. We really believe that it's best for children to stay with their families if at all possible. Although we do have residential programs, residential treatment programs, we have therapeutic foster care programs, we have group homes. We provide transitional living as well as intensive in-home services. We also in Tennessee, have an adoption program and a statewide crisis program. We operate in 10 states and the District of Columbia. Private not-for-profit organization focuses primarily with young people that are in the child welfare system or juvenile justice system or in danger of going into the child welfare or juvenile justice system. We have 64 locations, about 2,300 staff, serve about 17,000 young people a day. Our real focus is help work with states and to help transform their child welfare system and where we can focus more on keeping children and families together. And if children do have to be removed from their family, to help try to return those young people home as quickly as possible.